when I was outside the back of Saddam Hussein's palace in Iraq. Um, I uh,
What were
I
you
was a
doing there?
I was a combat
It's a bit
medic.
of a rant. I was just hanging out outside Saddam Hussein's palace.
What are you doing there, mate? Yeah, I was in the U.S. Army.
Yeah.
God had called me into the U.S. Army back in 2001.
Hmm.
Um, sorry, 2000, not 2001. And I ended up being a combat medic for the United States Army because my wife's Puerto Rican. I was living in the Caribbean. I had a green card, and there was this option. The Lord had kept saying the word citizenship to me, and then I saw citizenship on the side of a building, and it just happened to be a Army recruiting center. So I felt like the Lord was trying to ask me, was saying, join the Army, join the American Army. I joined the American Army 2 months before 9/11 happened.
Oh,
Um, So it was, whenever people say the Lord has you in such a place for such a time as now,
yeah. Hmm.
that would be one of those moments. Um, uh, so that led to me being in a war.
Hmm.
So I ended up being in the thing called the Avalon Party. So it's like the first group of people to go.
Hmm.
So I ended up in the lead units that went into Baghdad in 2003. That was 464, 164 armor and 37 infantry and stuff like that. Um, I was in these objectives called Thunder Run and Heavy Metal, which was to charge into the middle of Baghdad and to take Baghdad and work your way out. So pretty much everyone saw me as like the Christian guy, and
Hmm.
it was in the unit. And every time somebody had any kind of, you know, uh, faith crisis, faith crisis, they would come talk to me. So I ended up being Big Brother. I was kind of like the oldest there anyway. Um, I was like 25, 26 years old, I think.
Hmm.
And everyone else was like 19, 20. So I was kind of like the bigger brother around everybody. And but there was this one day whenever, if you can imagine, um, when David says about being in the valley of the shadow of death, that's all around us. There's all the smoke, all the smells, all the atmospheres of war.
Hmm.
And so we're sort of bunkered in at this palace. It was Saddam Hussein's palace, the back of it. And we're all cleaning our weapons in between battles. We've been ambushed for days on end since the war started. And so our morale was pretty low, considering everything that was going on around us, all the carnage that we'd seen. Um, and I was sitting there with my weapon, an M16, and you can smell that it gives off a smell. It's a horrible smell. It's like a oily, you know, uh, weapon smell. Um, and I just asked the Lord in that moment, without really speaking it out. I kind of said it inwardly. I said, Lord, I would really like a guitar. Can you take away this M16 and give me a guitar so I could play it? Um, and I just sat there for a while just thinking about it. I really want a guitar. And I don't know if you're aware of how the military works, but usually the soldiers charge forward, and then supply kind of catches up with them eventually. So you don't quite know when the supply will turn up. So you kind of wait for it. Um, but that particular time that I was praying, the supply guys had caught up with us in the middle of Baghdad. And along with them came a chaplain. We could have been one of about 12 different chaplains. But this particular chaplain was somebody who I'd led worship for before. And he turned up at the back of Saddam Hussein's palace. And I watched him get out of the Jeep, we got out of the Humvee, and he walked round to the back and he took a guitar case out of the back of the Jeep and he started walking towards where we were standing. And as he was walking towards us, he saw me, he recognized me, and he brought the guitar straight over to me. And he opened up the guitar case in front of me and gave me the guitar and told me to sing a few songs uh,
Hmm.
at the back. So I started to worship there and just basic worship songs. And Um, and what I started to notice is that the atmosphere changed, and that there was more chatter than before. So I realized everything around me was changing. The tone was changing. The uh, the soldiers were starting to speak and starting to chatter. You know how you hear the chatter of a bass growing into a more of a roar. The voices become many. So
Mm.
so it was quite. You could tell that the atmosphere was changing, and so I realized this and over time I've kind of carried this with me, realizing that even in the midst of war, in the midst of the valley of the shadow of death, you can call down God's presence in the midst of that. And his presence is good and full of joy and full of hope and full of grace and full of mercy in the moment. And so I realized it's powerful to worship, but you're also proclaiming his words. So